Hi, welcome to OctopusDo. I'm Christian Ross. And today I am going to show you this great tool. It's called the Easy Knotter, and it was invented by my good friend Maureen Oliveto, otherwise known as Reenie. And I want to show you how to use this. It's a tool for creating knots in jewelry, in cord. So for example, pearl knotting, your traditional pearl knotting with silk, but it also works with leather, it works with so many different things. The really cool thing about this is you have two hands free while you're working, and you can make those wonderful spaced knotted necklaces with this really easily, and I'll show you how to do that. But I wanted to tell you that I'm also joined with my friend, my cat boss here, Nero, and he is hiding this great book that Maureen just came out with, which gives you all sorts of different designs that you can make using the Easy Knotter. So if you're looking for a project design, this is a great inspiration. There are 12 different projects in this book, and I absolutely loved it. I even broke down and made one of the designs before our show today, which is this really pretty necklace that I'm proud of. It's made with Botswana Agate, Czech glass bicones, silver tone seed beads, and the pendant at the bottom is an art clay silver, fine silver leaf that I made. So that gave me the perfect necklace to display this pendant that I was really proud of. And this particular project can be found in the book on page 26. So it is called Project 6 Pendant Necklace, 17 inches with an additional 7 inches for a pendant. So it makes a great necklace and then has that really long, very stylish section for a pendant to hang down. This is a lot of fun to make, and the instructions were really easy to read. So I highly recommend this book. It is called Hand Knotting Made Easy. I will, this is volume 2. I will give you a link to that in the description below. So let's get started on how to use this great tool. I'll set the book aside. So again, the Easy Knotter was designed by Maureen Oliveto, and this ships to you with a knob that protects the post. The post on this is not sharp, so you don't have to worry about that. But there's a knob on it that will keep this from punching through plastic or anything if you happen to have it in your purse. It's very portable, carry it along with you. I, however, am terrible about losing things, so I have already lost the post that comes on this. Ugh, that's all me. Anyway, on this, you have the measurements on the tool, which I have an old version of this tool, which it's pretty funny. I've been using this for such a long time. I think 2 or 3 versions have come out after this. On this particular one, it's all in inches, and it doesn't matter if you're right or left-handed because the measurements go in either direction. The new version of this has measurements in millimeters as well. It has inches on one side and millimeters on the other, so you have your preference. Now the reason you have the measurements on here is because if you are hand knotting with spaces in between your beads, like you saw on the necklace there, if you want those spaces to be even and you're using any other tool, then you either have to have a separate ruler and you line everything up and you start to place your knot, and then you have to double check the measurement, or you try to eyeball it. Well, this is an all-in-one tool. So what this does is it will sit down on your workplace. You can use a bead mat if you like. It's not really necessary, but the very cool thing about this tool is it will sit down on your workplace and you have 2 hands free, as opposed to doing the technique with tweezers and an awl or a hand knotter. This gives you both hands free. The first thing that you do with your material is you're going to take your silk cord or your leather, whatever you're going to use, and you want to string all of your beads onto that material before you start. Now, I've already done that with my sample here. So I've strung everything. There are no knots in this as of yet, except for the very beginning, and I'll show you that. But I've already strung all of my beads onto my silk cord. If you're using the pre-packaged silk cord, such as Griffin, things like that, it actually comes with a needle attached, which is so handy because you want to create a knot that is going to hold your bead in place. So you basically want to have material that will fill up the hole in your bead as largely as possible, because if you have this teeny tiny string in this really big hole, then your bead is going to slide down over that knot that you make. So you want to use as large of a cord that will fit through the hole of your bead. The Griffin silk cord, or any of the silk cord that has the needle already attached, has a needle and the string. The string doesn't fold over. And what that means is you don't get that double thickness right where the needle is. It's already in there. It doesn't fold over. The needle is attached straight through. It's a straight width all the way through, so you don't have that bulk to try to pull through. I, for this project, used a silk cord that came on a spool, and so it did not have the needle attached. How I got around that is a great suggestion in the book from Maureen, is I took the end of my silk cord, I put glue on the end of my cord and let that dry. And what that did is that gave me a stiff segment of cord that I was able to use like a needle to pick up my beads. Now, of course, because it's just silk cord and a bit of glue, it's not as sturdy of a stiff surface as a needle is. That's okay, because I wasn't using it to pierce anything. I'm not sewing through anything. I just needed a stiff end to be able to go through the hole of a bead without getting all caught up. So I put glue on the end of this, let it dry, and then took a sharp pair of scissors and I cut the end of this stiff part. I cut the end at an angle, and that gave me a point that was able to go through the beads quite easily. That technique is explained in the book. It's a great one, and that's how I got these beads on this cord that didn't have the needle attached. The pattern I used to string this together is the one in the book in the project that we talked about, but I'll go ahead and point out the order of beads that I put on here. The first thing that I did, I ran the end of my cord through the crimp tube. I counted 10 size 15 seed beads. I added a jump ring, and then I ran the needle back through that crimp tube. That got me the starting point for this particular line. And I'll move these beads out of the way so you can get a good idea of what that looks like. I went ahead and crimped that crimp tube, so I'm ready to start out with my design. Now, what I decided to do for this demonstration is I made a necklace with this beautiful Botswana agate. I wanted to make a bracelet to match. So here's what I added. I strung all of my beads in the order that I want them, so it looks like this. I have a size 15 seed bead, an agate, and a size 15, and then I'm going to place a knot to hold that segment together. So then I have a 15 size seed bead, an agate, and a 15. So that's 2 repeating segments. The next thing that I wanted to do is add a little bit of sparkle. So I have the size 15 seed bead, a crystal, and that's a Czech glass bicone crystal, agate, crystal, size 15, and that's a segment. 15, agate, 15, repeat, 15, agate, 15, then sparkles, so 15, crystal, agate, crystal, 15, and then the last two are the repetition of the first two, so it's a size 15, agate, size 15, then a 15 agate, and another 15, so move that down. So basically, that is the recipe for a bracelet to match the necklace that's in the book. And I took it a step further now, and I went ahead, because I'm going to show you how to end this. It's the same way that I began it. A crimp tube, and then 10 size 15 seed beads. Those will get looped around at the end. I'm going to add a jump ring, then run that thread back through the crimp tube and give it a crimp to close it off. And then my bracelet should be done. So let's get started. Now I want that first segment that we saw to go right up against that crimp tube. I want my beads to go ahead and start with no spacing. So the first thing that I've got to do is I'm going to add a knot next to the crimp tube. So I basically have to tie a knot. And how I do that is I put my string over my hand with the end here, and I just wrap it around and go through to pick up the end, and that's it. You're just making a loop, a single loop. You take this loop and you put it over the post, like so. Then you want to go ahead and tighten that loop against the post, and you're not pulling really tight. Like you're not going to lift a car with this. You don't have to worry about that. Don't pull it that tight. You just want to wrap it around the loop, and the part of the knot that crosses over itself is away from you at the front, like pointing away. Just the regular loop part is pointing toward you. Because I want this knot up next to that crimp tube, then I've got to slide it down. So I pull on the opposite side, like so, and it slides that down. Now, do you see what happens? When you slide that down and you give it a little tension, everything wants to point forward. It makes kind of a 90-degree angle, like you're pulling on this side, but your clasp end is going this way. The biggest mistake that people make is that they want to straighten this out. Don't straighten it out. Don't take this, don't pull it back to the side. Don't do that. You want this 90-degree L shape. So what you do here is you put your thumb against the string on the post, and you put your first two fingers, your pointer and your middle finger, on either side. But basically, you're doing this. You're making this motion right here. You're just like you're talking with your fingers. So you're doing that, and gently lift everything off of the post. And I'm not pulling with this hand yet, but you lift everything off the post, and before you let go with anything, keep your fingers together, then give the side that's holding the string a tug. So basically that ties the knot. There you go. So you end up with that knot right up against your crimp tube. That's how you get a close knot. Don't pull it back around. Hold everything as you pick it up, and then tug. Don't let go until you tug. That's it. That's the secret. And you end up with this great knot in your silk cord right up against the bead or right up against that crimp tube, wherever you want it. You end up with a nice, snug knot. It's really that easy. Okay, so I've done the first knot. I then slide down that first segment, that we talked about, which is a size 15 seed bead, an agate bead, and another 15, like that. Tie another knot. So I'm just using my 2 fingers because, you know, I learned how to do pearl knotting on the regular flippy knotter. So I'm used to holding things in like this to do my knot. So this is just easy for me. I'm holding my fingers and I go around my fingers and put the end, this bead down between, and that gives me that same knot that we did before. See? All right, I drop that down over the post. Same thing that we did before. Pull it a little tight on that post, you see? And I have to make a knot on either side of each segment before I make the space. So I have to bring that segment down to the post, like so. There we go. So again, remember what I said. Don't try to take this bead, don't try to pull this back around. If you do that, you're going to end up with a space that you don't want. Just right here, your necklace is going this way, a little bit of tension here, okay? Take your thumb, put it against the post, take your first 2 fingers and go on either side of that beaded segment, like so. Then you gently lift and don't let go and give it a tug. You give it that tug and your knot ends up right next to the bead. That's the secret. It's so frustrating when you're trying to knot and you can't get that knot right up against the bead. Love this tool, it works great. So I have my end piece where my clasp is going to go, the crimp tube, and my first beaded segment with a knot on each side. So now I'm going to make a space. Now what I do is make another knot. There we go, just like before, and drop that knot over the post. And you pull that tight, just like we've been doing. How much of a space do I want? Well, it's going to be on my bracelet, so I want a lot of beads to show. So I'm thinking that just like the necklace, I'm going to use about 1/4 of an inch as my spacing. So 1/4 of an inch, see, this is a 1/2 inch. The 1/4 of an inch is that line. So what I do is pull this down and go back and forth until I get my knot is on my post. And the last knot that I made that's against the bead is on that line. And so the resulting space is 1/4 of an inch. Brilliant. So what I do with this is take my thumb, put it against the post. I'm sure you guys could say this along with me at this point. Okay, put it against the post, and I'm grabbing with just my first finger this time, because I'm just holding the knot, and gently lift, and I'll bring this all the way up here so you can see. Give it a tug, and there we go. The space between these 2 knots is 1/4 of an inch. So then I slide down my next segment of beads, which is a size 15, an agate bead, and a size 15. There you go. And I tie a knot on the other side of that segment. So go around, tie the knot, put that knot down on the post, and slide everything down. Make sure all of my beads are squished up next to each other. Remember, don't pull that back around. Make sure everything's on there like it's supposed to be. All right. Thumb against the back side, finger on either side. Okay, don't pull, gently lift up, then tug. And I end up with my knots perfectly against the beads on each side. So I'm going to go through and continue this bracelet, and I will show you how to finish the end. But this is all the same. Oh, something I'm doing here, just for my own peace of mind, I generally put my finger on top of the post as I'm pulling. Again, this is not sharp, so I can do that. I put my finger on top of the post because that saves me as I'm going back and forth. I know I'm not going to pop the knot up off of that post. It's very handy. I just didn't want to block your view. So I've gone ahead and knotted all of my beads for my bracelet. I started out with the jump ring, 10 size 15 seed beads, and I crimped that. And then I did a knot before and after each beaded segment. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 beaded segments. And in between of these beaded segments, I have 1/4 of an inch space. So far, this gives me, if you count the jump ring, 6 and 6.5 inches, a little bit more. Yeah, maybe 6 1/4. And I'm going to put a clasp on the other end, or actually I'm going to put a segment of the seed beads and the crimp and the jump rings on the other end, and then I'll add a clasp to that. So the entire thing is going to be about 7 to 7.5 inches in length. I'm through with the easy knotter at this point because I've even made this last knot right up against that seed bead, and I want my crimp to go next to that. So I'll set the easy knotter aside, and I will slide down my crimp tube and 10 size 15 seed beads. Now I need to add a jump ring. Something I wanted to tell you about this jump ring, these are really cool. I'm using an oval jump ring, and the reason I'm doing that is because I'm using cord with this. If you have a soldered jump ring, round or oval or otherwise, that's great, but this is a regular jump ring that has an opening on it, and with these oval jump rings, the opening is on the long side there. So when you tie around this or crimp cord to it, that cord is always going to settle at the bottom, and you'll have less of a chance of the cord coming out of any gap on the side there. So that's why I'm using this oval jump ring and why I really like these. So just a side note on that, I'm going to slide my jump ring onto this segment here. So there we go. It just fits nicely over those seed beads. And then I come back and I run my silk cord back through that crimp tube the same way that it came out. Like basically the string is coming out this way, and I added all the seed beads. So now I go back the way it came. So I just put my cord through there and pull it all tight. So I'm just going to grab a hold of this so I can pull everything snug. Now I'm going to use a standard crimping technique with this instead of just squishing that flat. Anytime you just squish a crimp tube flat, you run the risk of the edge of that really wearing on your stringing material and that being a point of failure. In other words, the edge of that could cut your string, and you don't want that to happen. So what I'm going to do is you can use a regular crimper or Amtara crimper, your choice on this. I happen to have my Amtara crimper nearby, and I will give you a link to that. So I come in here and I put that crimp tube right in the channel for the crimper and give it a squeeze. There you go. Can you see how that makes that into a crescent shape? All right, and then I like folding this over once I've done that. The Amtara crimper, like I could leave that there and trim everything up, but instead of just leaving that at a crescent shape, I'm going to go in and go ahead and fold that the rest of the way over. So I just grab this and give it a squeeze. Just a gentle squeeze, and that folds the crimp the rest of the way over. Now that would look really good if I went back in and covered that with a crimp cover. However, I don't have any at this point. I need to run to the store and get some, or maybe place an order. But you can see how that finishes that end off quite nicely. Then I just have to come in with my scissors and trim that off. So the only thing that remains to be done with this bracelet to finish it off is to add a clasp. So I've got to go track down a clasp, but you can easily see how with these jump rings, all you have to do is open the jump ring, add your clasp, and you're finished. That's all it takes. So I have a nice bracelet now to go along with the necklace that I made. And it's that easy, thanks to the Easy Knotter. Thank you, Reenie. So that's a wrap on today's project. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave me a like below. If you didn't, that's okay, I'll take the thumbs down, but either way, leave me a comment below. I love reading your comments. And if you have the Easy Knotter tool, I really suggest picking up the book to go with it. There are great instructions in that and wonderful inspiration, definitely. So yeah, very good source of information. If this is your first time here to OctopusDo, then don't forget to subscribe. And after you subscribe, you can click on the bell icon to get notifications for when more content comes out. I'm trying to put things out more regularly, so look for new projects coming out soon. Hope you enjoyed this project. Now you know, go make something.